All right, so we're on holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, as it is known. Again, we're on holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics for Our Fathers, chapter 2, Mishna 15. This is part 4, and this is probably part 5, part 6, part 7. And the Mishnah, we're working our way through at the very beginning. We're still at the very beginning of this Mishnah. It says that each said 3 things. Rabbi Lezer said, let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. Do not anger easily. Okay, so we're gonna hit that part yet about getting angry, but we'll see. We mentioned last week. We mentioned the name of the Tosfos Yontif, one of the great commentators on the Mishnah, and he says that honoring a person, right? If you're gonna honor somebody, right? What does it mean that they should be dear to you as your own? Right? What does it mean that let your fellow man's honor be as dear as your own? Means, they wanted to say, it means the honor of yourself, i.e., self-esteem. Right? When a person has themselves, so we spoke, in detail about lack of self-esteem. Right? That's this generation, the cream puff generation. Lack of self-esteem. Right? Someone asked, but if I think I did something good and this and that, it could lead me to gaiva, right? It could lead me to being, conceited, think I'm God's gift to the world. Could be. Right? But a person, there's a fine balance here, right? A person has to have self-esteem, right? I don't think there's any question. We definitely need self-esteem, right? But at the same time, you got to realize where you're holding also. Even if a person, like I had an 18-year-old guy tell me years ago, Rabbi, cut me some slack. I'm holding better than 90% of world Jewry. Now, even if that was true, who are you comparing to? 90% of world Jewry cannot say the alphabet. They can't read, right? They don't know anything about Judaism. So it's like saying, I'm the greatest person in this generation, or I'm up there comparing myself to Sodom, right? You're comparing yourself to Sodom. So like, you're going to say how great you are? Come on. There's always ways to knock ourselves down. That's what the evil inclination wants. Same time, you got to be careful. I would agree, right? You do have to be careful when it comes to being conceited. You want to think you're so great compared to everybody else, right? Even if it's true, don't matter if it's true, right? You have to know your place. The Mishna Pirke Avos says, we'll get there one day when I'm about 97, right? And that is, you got to know your place. You got to be honest. Got to be really introspective, right? Coming up this week, end of the week, you got to be introspective, right? So we mentioned this part of the Tosfos Yontif. We didn't go any further because we got caught up in all that. So further, the Tosfos Yontif says, I got a Mishnah, chapter 4, Mishnah 12, right? Chapter 4, Mishnah 12, it says that a friend's money should be as special to you as your own. Right? Now, what's the difference over here? Over here, we're telling you, the Mishnah says, let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. Over there, it says, chapter 4, Mishnah 12, we'll get there. I don't know when. We'll get there one day. When it says that a friend's money should be as special to you as your own, it doesn't mean if you spend money, let's say, God forbid, the wrong way, right? You don't spend it in the right way, and you lose it, you just don't want that for your friend, right? In other words, you made a mistake. You don't want your friend to make a mistake, right? Rather, what does it mean? It means someone whose money is precious to them, and there are plenty of people out there, money is precious to them. Whether you have a lot or a little, doesn't matter, it's precious. Because if you'd ask most people, how much money do you have in your pocket? How much money do you have in your purse? So most people could tell you, 100% could tell you almost the exact amount, give or take. Why? It's important, right? It's something that's important to them. Yeah, we'll speak about that in a second. But the point is that someone whose money is precious to them, which I think should be most people, should treat their friend's money in the same way. Now, people are going to say, isn't that obvious? You borrow something from somebody. Doesn't it mean you should take care of it properly? Yeah. Right now, the question is, what level of borrow would you have? You're getting paid, to watch this thing. Are you borrowing it, and say for free? So the whole question, what happens if it gets damaged? Right? Did you have is it permissible for you to touch? And even if it's permissible to touch, what if it's an onus? Right? What if it's something beyond your control? Right? Are you going to be liable? You're not going to be liable. These are the first things. These laws. One of the first things that kids learn. When they learn Mishna, when they learn Talmud. Right? It's one of the first things. In Talmud, they kids the age of 11, 10 or 11, what's the first chapter they learn normally? Chapter 2 above Mitzvah. What's it all about? Lost objects. Now, why is the custom to teach about lost objects to kids? To show the world's not hefker. The world is not ownerless. It's not just finders keepers, losers weepers, right? Not just about that. Some things I'm allowed to keep. If it doesn't have a sign, it's not placed in a specific area, whatever. These laws are complex, but in general, if it's something that's got a sign on it, someone can identify it. Yeah, you're not allowed to keep it. You have to put up signs, right? You have to put up signs so people can know. And they themselves have to come and give details about what they lost. But that's to teach kids the world is not ownerless. There's responsibility. Doesn't mean I can do whatever I want when I find something. Right? In the secular world, let's say there's no let's say you found a person's wallet and the money in the wallet, but there's no identification. Now, technically, could I take it? No identification. Right? I'm talking about not according to the Torah. Why wouldn't I be allowed to take it? Right? What would make me have to return it? Because you'll say, isn't there more obligation? Even if it doesn't have doesn't have identification, doesn't belong to you. I don't know, why not? I'll make it easier. A person finds, a sum of money, not scattered in a specific place, whatever, money put down. You could say, maybe I should be able to take it. Why? No sign. Got no name on it. Right? Maybe I should be allowed to take it. Right? So in the secular world, I don't know if there'd be a question there. There's no identifying thing. There's no name. Right? Let's make it easy. There's no name. No way to identify it. Who says I have to put up signs? Try and find the owner. Who says? Why would I have to do that? I can take it. Should be allowed to take it according to secular law. Should be allowed to take it. Why not? Person probably forgot about it. A person probably gave up hope. They're going to find it anyway. But a Jew is different. There are laws governing this. Can't walk away. Can't look the other way. If you find something on the floor, right? Find something on the ground, right? There are laws governing this. So kids have to be taught, this world's not yours. I can't do whatever I want. So then it goes further, right? Then they learn further. Someone borrowed something. Someone's asked to watch something for someone else. So the question is, okay, what's their level of gardening? They're being paid, right? And even if they're being paid, are they allowed to use it? And what happens if something happens to it, right? Let's say, it's beyond, right? It's beyond what you would have done in general, right? Who says? Maybe I could keep it. Maybe I should be allowed to keep it. The world, is not ownerless. And the fact is, it depends what type of level the guardianship is over here. There are a lot of laws governing this, but it means if you're asked to watch something or you borrow something, whatever it is, you have to take care of it. Right? You have an obligation to take care of it. And if you're negligent, right, in many cases you're liable because you're negligent. If it's beyond your control, that depends. Depends what level of guardianship you have over here. Some cases you'll be exempt, because or other cases not. Depends. Right? We're not going into these laws now. But the point is you have responsibility. So comes along, the Tosas Yontivin says, what do you do with chapter 4, Mishna 12? It says a friend's money should be as special to you as your own. It doesn't mean using it the wrong way. It means you should treat your friend's money the same way. Now, we're not necessarily talking money per se. Could be objects. Could be property. Their property. You have to watch out for someone's property as you would want to watch out for your own. So when it comes to your own property, you're not going to let anyone, you're going to be careful. I mean, I would think you got things in there you don't want damaged, right? You don't want damaged over here. You do not want people, in your own household, damaging things, right? So too, you wouldn't want, why would you want to damage someone else, right? Someone else's stuff. Shouldn't want to do that. You should want to take care of it, right? That's what he's saying over here. In other words, someone else's property should be dear as your own. You should look at their property like it's yours. So even if you're there guarding it, or you borrow it, or whatever the case is, you do whatever you want. You just use it when I want. If you have permission, you have permission. If you don't have permission, it's a different story. What if I have to move it? Let's say I have to move it because if I don't, it's going to get ruined in a certain way or whatever. I want to guard it more. Okay. That may be permissible. But what happens when you do it? You slip and you break it or you damage it. Good question. You were moving it for its own sake. You had to move it. Let's say you had to move it. There was an onus over here. Listen, if you were negligent, different issue. It can happen. It can happen. Both ways. Person's negligent and a person, and a person is, under onus. Could happen. It's out of your control. So it depends on the case. Right? We're just speaking in generalities, over here. Right? But it means your money or your property should be precious to you, just like someone else's. In other words, you wouldn't do anything to your friend's property you wouldn't do to your own. I remember, in grammar school, some kid puts his feet on the desk. The teacher says, would you do that at home? You put your feet on the furniture? They say, yeah. My parents let. Well, most parents probably wouldn't let. Put your shoes on the coffee table. I don't think so. Right? Okay, kids are kids. Yeah. So, so person say, yeah, I would do this in my house. If it's something reasonable that you would do, that's one thing. If it's not reasonable, you would do it, something else. Right? Something else. One other point I want to make. I see there, the question here. One question, comes up. I shouldn't say really it's a question, but it says over here, as the Tosafos Yontif says, your money is precious to you. Your property is precious to you. So their property should also be precious to you. You shouldn't damage it. You shouldn't cause damage. So I'll tell you that money in general, a person knows, in general, you'd ask somebody how much money's in their pocket, they can tell you. They can probably tell you almost exact. Right? Some more, some less. They're in the ballpark. They know how much money's in their pocket. Now, why do I mention this? Because that's important. That seemingly is important. Now, when it comes to learning Torah, one of the things that people don't like to do is review. Especially when we review things we know. We want to learn new things. We mentioned this many times. We want to learn new things. We don't want to review something I already know. But it says in the Mishna Berurah, the third part of the Mishna Berurah, in Orthodox, he talks about the laws of Shabbos. It's all about the laws of Shabbos. And he says, in the introduction over there, it says, if you don't review, you will transgress. Not cursing anyone, it's a fact. Many laws. Many, many laws. You got to constantly review. Otherwise, you probably come to Torah prohibitions. Right? So, what's the point? Things like that we don't necessarily like to do. We don't like to review. If you don't review, you won't remember. Right? There's a lot of detail. Right? But when we learn, how much do we try to remember what we learn? How much do we try and even memorize? Memorize it. Right? In other words, you'll say, oh, I heard this once. I forget the name. Whoever said it. Right? I'm not sure who said it. Right? And they may give over the right information, but they don't remember who said it. You can say, well, a lot of people say a lot of things. This rabbi, that rabbi, early commentator, later commentator, okay? Right? Bottom line over here, if it was that important to them, they would remember. Right? If it was that important, they would remember. So I'll tell you something happened to me. I mentioned the story before. Right? It's a good story. I actually got to write it down. But I was once telling over something I learned to my Rebbe. I was going through this whole thing, and I quoted a source. And he said, okay, stop. I said, what do you mean? He said, you quoted it wrong. So that's one of the commentaries at the back of the Gemara. So I said, what do you mean? I just saw it. And he says, I'm telling you, you didn't quote it right. Go back. Go back and look. You didn't quote it right. So I said, no offense, I just saw this the other day. He said, I'm telling you, you quoted it wrong. Pull out the Gemara and read it. He said, read it. So I pulled the Gemara. He said, okay, read it. I started to read it. He said, who said it? I made a mistake in one of the Gaonim. One of the great rabbis after the, at the end of the Gemara. At the end of the time of the Talmud, as it was canonized. Yeah, nothing else was added. So it's the time right before Rashi. Right time, 800, 900, Common Era, whatever it is. So I made a mistake. Instead of saying Rav Amram Gon, I said Rav Chai Gon, or Rav Chai Gon, I said Rav Amram Gon. I made a mistake. So I'll tell you what my Rebbe said in this context. Unbelievable. It's good for Elul. It's an unbelievable Musar idea. And that is like this. He said, listen, if I were to ask you just in this case, he said, if I were to ask you how much money is in your pocket, you would tell me to the dime. You would tell me exactly how much is there, give or take. If I ask you who said this or who said that in the Gemara, you don't remember. It was Abaye, it was Rav, it was Amram going, Rav Hai going, it was this one, it was that one. You don't remember. You know why you don't remember? This is what he told me. But you know why you don't remember? Because it's not important to you. If it was important to you, like money, you would remember who said what. So then he told me the following. Then he said, I have no obligation to listen to whatever you have to say now. You know why? I don't have any obligation. I don't have any obligation because you made a mistake over here. The Gemara is not that important to you, or this one's not that important to you. I don't have an obligation to listen. You don't remember who said it, but you remember how much money's in your pocket. It means it's not so important to you. Don't forget to shut the door on the way out. Sat there like frozen. Hit me right upside the head. Right upside the head. He's like, don't forget to shut the door on the way out. Smack right upside the head. So someone said, a few people asked me this, how'd you feel when he said that? I was a little bit in shock. That's the truth. But afterwards, I said that was the greatest love tap I ever got. Why do I call it a love tap? I call it a love tap because he made a very strong point. What was his point? His point was something that's important to you, you remember. Something that's not important to you, you won't remember. It's not a question of brain power. It's not a question you have a photographic memory. Nothing to do with any of this. It's what's important. So if this is not important, you'll remember it. That's why I have to constantly review. That's a very important point here. Right? Because what are we saying? What they're saying over here, that money is precious to a person. Property is precious to a person. The person knows what they have. They know what they have, more or less. They know where things are. Why? It's important to know. That's important. If you ask what Rashi said on last week's parsha, that they don't remember. Right? Remember a certain thing in Torah, they don't remember. Why not? Not important. Not so important. You got to constantly review. Some people say reviewing is boring. Okay. So what? Still have to review? You should know things like the back of your hand for all you men out there. Right? All your JITs or Jews out there. You should know like the back of your hand. No, I'm just going to have this obligation. They have to know what to do. Who says they have to know it verbatim and this and that? Right? In other words, someone asks you a question somewhere, have an answer. Should have an answer. You can say, okay, I'm not the world's greatest Torah scholar or this, that, fine. Right? But you have to know what to do and you have to remember what to do. There are a lot of details. Right? We said, anyone wants to convert, many, many details. Kashrus, blessings, Shabbos, a lot of details. We're even talking about philosophical issues, different issues. There are a lot of details. Practically, what do I do? And what if I made a mistake in this? And how does that apply? And this apply? You got to constantly review. And if you don't constantly review, you'll forget. That's exactly what the Chofetz Chaim said. But maybe took it a step further. Right? He's explaining over here. Right? Sorry, Tosas Jones. Explaining over here. Right? The money is precious to you. It's precious to you. So therefore, someone else's property should also be precious. But so my Rebbe says on that, okay, Torah has to be precious. It has nothing to do, again, whether I have a photographic memory or not. It has to do with review. And if you don't review, you transgress. Right? More or less. Depending what it is. You made mistakes. I think that's pretty clear. Right? But he made a very, very strong point. And the point is, if you don't remember Torah, you know what that means? First of all, you probably didn't review enough. That's true. But not only that, it's not important to you. I say someone's learning full time, 10 hours a day. Okay, they forget here, they forget there. Give or take. To say Torah's not that important to you, pretty harsh. Pretty harsh. They keep Torah mitzvahs. They keep kosher. They keep Shabbos. Keep other things. They want to live to a high standard. Okay. But he's saying it's so precious. Torah is so precious. How can you forget who said it? What he said to me. Heard it with my own ears. Right? Still feel the sting. But it was a beautiful sting. Because that hit home. And he's right. Right? If you would ask me how much money is in my pocket right now, which is none because it's right after Shabbos here, right? I can tell you. I know how much is in my wallet. I know how much change I have, give or take. I can tell you. I mean, not that much. I can tell you. Why? Because the person knows. When a person has something they need to know, and it's important to know, they'll know it by hook or by crook because it's important. Why isn't Torah so important to them? Say, what do you mean? I go to classes, I listen, I try, I this, right? A lot of different levels here, okay? But he's telling you, if you can't remember who said what, that means it's not important. That means Torah doesn't matter to you. What do you mean? I just kept Shabbos. I just did other things. Other mitzvahs, and I'm learning, and I'm trying, and I'm this. Okay, we're not going to beat everyone down. It's good for Elul. Good muster for Elul. But a person has to realize what's the most important thing. Torah. Not about baseball, not about sports, not about entertainment, not about the news. It's about Torah. So why don't I take that more seriously? What's someone going to say? What's the easy answer? Moreno v'Rabbeinu HaYetzar. We have Yetzar. We have a lot of Yetzars, a lot of evil inclinations for a lot of things. Especially to waste time. Especially to enjoy things that make us relax. Okay. Person can't be a machine and learn all the time. Can't learn 24/7. Can't have that mentality all the time. Why not? Because you're outside, you're somewhere else, right? I mentioned, that a person goes on vacation. They've got an obligation to pray 3 times a day, right? Doesn't matter where you are, right? Who said you're allowed to go on vacation? You don't have anywhere to pray. I've seen this by many, I shouldn't say by many, whatever. Seen by some people, tell the story. They went here, they went there, and they were nowhere near anywhere to daven, anywhere to pray with 10 men. I don't care. You have intention, you have less intention when you pray. Irrelevance, right? We hold a guy has to pray, a Jew has to pray 3 times a day, period. A woman once a day, twice a day. Yeah, but you don't have to pray with 10 men. So how can someone go in the wilderness and go away for, I don't know, weeks or this or that and have nowhere to pray? Have no minion to pray with. Say I'm communing with God, I'm doing this. No, they're on vacation. I'm not talking about, people doing what we call hisbodedus. They'll go to the mountains, they'll go to a field, they'll go this, they'll meditate, whatever. But even if they do once a month, once every few weeks, whatever it is, they still pray 3 times a day. So how is that permissible? How in the world is that permissible? Not. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's not. Right? They'll make excuses. They'll say this, like that. Yeah. But if you go on vacation, wherever they go, you have to make sure there's 10 men to pray with. You got to make sure you go to a place where there's a minyan. Because you want to go there doesn't mean it's permissible. You got to say, what? It's so important to pray with 10 men. Yeah, you tell me it's rabbinical, very good, even though they were out from a verse in the Torah. Everyone agrees there's a mitzvah, there's a Torah obligation to pray. Everyone agrees. Right? Pray with 10 men, they learn it out. They learn out from desecration of God's name or sanctification of God's name. Nidashti b'topnei Israel. What does it mean to sanctify yourself in front of the Jewish people? It means 10 men, rabbis tell us. You need 10 men. Yeah. So it could be learn it out from that verse. Very good. So you tell me the times, the prayers, the this, the that's all rabbinical. Okay. Isn't there a mitzvah to listen to the rabbis? Right? Deuteronomy chapter 17, we brought this up many times. Mitzvah to listen to the rabbis. Kohanim, in every generation. Mitzvah to listen to them. Right? I have to do what they say. Oh, someone's going to say, we just read today. Just read in synagogue today. Can't add or subtract in the Torah. Very good. The rabbis making adding and subtracting. No, they're not. They're making a fence around the Torah. But again, God says to Moshe, tell the Jewish people this is the law. And the law is you got to listen to the Kohanim in every generation. And if you don't listen to the Kohanim in every generation, what does the Torah say? The Torah says you don't listen to the rabbis in every generation. That's what the Kohanim are in our generation. Death penalty. Death penalty. It's not just a negative command. It's not just you transgress the negative command. Beyond that, death penalty. You got to listen to what they say. They got to pray 3 times a day. Man has to pray 3 times a day. And you're going to find a minyan to pray with. Now, it could be extenuating circumstances. It could be a lot of different things going on. But your day is planned around that. Right? I think I mentioned, or I didn't mention, I was away last week. So one night, or one late afternoon, I made a barbecue in a park. I went to a park with my family and 2 married kids. Right. So anyway, get the barbecue ready. So another 2 hours till sundown, give or take. Right. So, I took a look around. There was a place to pray, like 10 minutes away. Okay. So if I had to run out in the middle, would have done it. Someone already came around and said, do you want to daven mincha? So I said, yeah, afternoon service. So great. He already had 3 or 4 people with him. I had 3 or 4 people with me. All we had to do was get a few other people. Okay. That's where we prayed in a park. Right. Then we stayed 20 minutes later, half an hour later, pray the evening service. Very good. You guys say, hey, isn't it better to go to a synagogue? They say, yeah, it is. But you can pray anywhere. Essentially, you can pray anywhere, right? Except in a church. Essentially, you can pray anywhere. Right? But that's a huge thing. You're in a park, get all these families, you pray. You pray. You got to make plans. You got to make plans. If you have to pray 3 times a day, you got to know where you're going to be. right? You have to know, you have to plan accordingly. It doesn't always work out. Spending person on business trips, other things, okay, right? Especially in the winter, the sun goes down earlier, but you gotta make arrangements. This is not an onerous world, right? It applies to Jews, not to non-Jews, right? Again, you got to make those plans. Applies to men. Not going to apply to women here, but your day is planned around what, where, and when I'm going to pray. That's where your day surrounds, right? You can do other things during the day. It's not a problem. You got to think in your mind where you're going to be at this time, where you're going to be at that time. That's where your day plans around. Right? I'll just throw one other thing out there. There's, when a person's in a Avelis, when they're in mourning, let's say, make it easy for a parent, right? People you have to mourn for, mother, father, sister, brother, God forbid, a child that dies or a spouse, right? For a parent, so there's an obligation, or for anyone, really, in these cases, there's an obligation. If you're a guy, unless, you have issues and you can't lead services for whatever reason, you have an obligation to lead service, right? Say the morning's prayer a number of times, you got an obligation. Now, that being said, there are other people also have an obligation, right? Plenty of people die on a regular basis, right? It's the way of the world. So therefore, a lot of people have different obligations, right? To lead services. They're going to find a place where you're able to do that, where no one has an obligation. Very good. Yeah, but that's the main thing you think about day in and day out. When it's a parent, 11 months. Could be 12 months, within the 12 months, whatever it is, right? But for a parent, it's 11 months in general. A long time. Something you never forget. It's like a rock, right? It's like a yoke on a person. I remember my father died 9 years ago. No one in my family's doing anything, so I do everything. Okay. Right? So I made sure that, I did it the way it was supposed to be done. At the same time, you never ever forget you're in a Avelis. You never forget you're in mourning. Right? You can't go to weddings, you can't listen to music. Right? There are a lot of things you can't do that always remind you you're in mourning. Now, for everybody else, only 30 days. It's only 30-day obligation to mourn. Right? For a sister, brother, God forbid, a child or a spouse, only 30 days. Only for a parent is a year, but a year is a long time. A year is a long time. You get breaks certain times, like on Passover, on any festival, you don't lead services, right? So you get a week break on on Passover, you get a week break on Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, unless you lead services for that, if you're able to, or whatever. But in general, these things you never forget, right? And and you can't go traveling necessarily for pleasure. There are a lot of things when it comes to mourning you can't do, but there's a point here. The point is you can never forget you're in mourning, right? That's why you have a lot of these decrees to make sure it's not something light in your eyes. But for a year, it's a tremendous yoke. I don't think there's any question. Right? Not just listen to music and these other things or whatever. Right? Not just that. It's all about you have an obligation to lead services. You have an obligation, right? You have an obligation to find you have to say Kaddish. You have to say the morning prayer. You have to lead services. That is in the back of your mind, the front of your mind for a whole year. For a year. Where you're gonna be when who's there, who's not there, different things. It's a yoke. It's a tremendous yoke, right? But it's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons where it's something you don't forget, right? So even if a person's not in mourning, right? Even if a person's not in mourning, that's what has to be in the top of your mind. Where am I praying in the morning? Where am I going in the afternoon? What do I have to do? Where do I have to be? That, you have to find. You have that obligation, right? Therefore, going to a place where you're never going to be able to pray, right? It's a problem, right? It's a problem. When I was in the States last year, so, went out a few afternoons, this and that. I'd be back by a certain time. I mean, I didn't know all the ins and outs of other places. I wasn't driving myself or whatever. So, I was sort of stuck, right? Wherever I had to be. in different ways. But that was the most important thing, no question. And it worked out. I had to go somewhere and, whatever. And whatever, it worked out. Worked itself out. But that's crucial. That is crucial. You can't shirk responsibility. There's no question. And people go to places where there is no, where there are not 10 men to pray. It's a problem. Right? It's not a small problem. It's not just, oh, well, big deal. So I didn't pray with a minute. So I'll pray anyway, but I won't pray with 10 men. Okay. So I didn't do the positive command, praying with 10 men. No, prayer is a huge thing. And even if you pray with people that are sinners, doesn't matter. Once you pray with a community, your prayers are looked at differently than if you pray by yourself. Again, it doesn't apply to women. It only applies to men. Yeah. So therefore, it's a lot easier if you pray with 10 men for your prayers to be accepted. Yeah. If you pray by yourself, God's going to scrutinize your prayers much more. Much more. Again, if you don't have a choice, you don't have a choice. If a person's sick, no, God's not going to respect you, try and find 10 men to pray with when you're sick as a dog. No. Obviously, be exempt. You definitely be exempt, in that case. But, otherwise, who says for you to go in the wilderness for 10 days? For a week, for 3 days or whatever. You have nowhere to pray. That has to be in the back of your mind. It has to be in the front of your mind. You're going to say, what about, I have to get out. I want to see this, see that. I don't know, see this great landmark or whatever. It's in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so it says you should bring 10 men with you. You're not going to make it back, this and that. You didn't plan it. You can't do something where you don't plan it. That is forbidden. I don't care if someone's going to say, oh, but it's rabbinic in nature and this and that. Then, I pray better without all these. It doesn't matter what you think. Nobody cares what you think. Nobody cares what I think. It's an obligation. It's what I have to do. Right? I've said this many times. I've heard, some people say, well, my prayer is more important. I should be able to say what I want, to be able to do what I want. It's not about what you want to do, right? Get that idea out of your head. It's not about what you want to do. It's about my obligation. It's about what the Torah guides me to do. And who guides me in the Torah is the rabbi, right? Works hand in hand. Right? As we said today in the Torah, there are mishpatim and there are chukim. There are laws I understand. There are laws I don't understand. And bottom line is, these laws have to be explained. Because the Torah itself doesn't give explanation. Torah is a law book. Do this, don't do that. That's what it is. The law book. If the Torah go into all the explanations, you never finish it. Be 5,000 million pages. Right? You never finish it. So you have to understand what to do. Right? That's that's our obligation. But again, it's not about what my opinion is. Like I said, most people don't care what my opinion is. Right? No one cares what your opinion is. It's about what the Torah says, what the rabbis tell us, because you need both. You need the Torah gives us the base, right? And the rabbis coming to explain what it is. That's not adding or subtracting. They're telling you, what does it mean? Right? What does it mean over? What does it mean don't kill? It's euthanasia, not murder. Well, maybe you say it's mercy. It's not murder. We hold it's murder. You're telling me abortion. It's not murder. Why isn't it murder? Because it's nothing. It's not a living entity. We hold at a certain level. It is. Right? At a certain time, it is a living entity. That's murder. Right? Because it's all about interpretation. Whatever the rabbis say. There's a consensus. Right? Things you're allowed to do, not allowed to do. Are you allowed to do it? But Torah doesn't tell me. Right? Torah talks about lost objects, doesn't tell me anything. Doesn't tell me anything. What if it's not worth my time, to put up signs and this and that? What if, there are a lot of things there, a lot of details the Torah doesn't tell me. So if the Torah doesn't tell me, how would I know? Right? How in the world am I going to know? So that's what the rabbis do, right? They fill in the gaps. They totally fill in the gaps. Yeah. Let me take some questions here. So someone here asks, we're not supposed to think that we're better than someone else. Why should we? Why should we think we're better than someone else? Even if a person is when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs. So what? Right? Even if I would say, yeah, you could say you're better than someone else, but who are you comparing to? First of all, in God's eyes, you don't know. If someone doesn't keep Torah and mitzvahs, and they do very, they're not keeping very much at all, then yeah, they're going to get judged accordingly. But a person would say, well, it's hard to judge, very hard to judge. God's the ultimate judge. What do you do with somebody that doesn't dress? You wouldn't think they're an Orthodox Jew per se. They don't dress the way they should, let's say. But who says their fear of heaven is less than yours? I'm not talking about people who are heretics, people who don't keep Torah mitzvahs per se, right? Not necessarily talking about that. There are people who don't, you wouldn't think that, the way they dress, where they're holding in the world. You wouldn't think they're holding the world so well. What kind of, in spiritual terms, okay, right? But in God's eyes, they may be even greater than you. Maybe. A person can learn a good part of the day, but they waste time talking about politics and other things. Person only learns 1 hour a day, but they're concentrating that entire hour. They may get it. They may get more merits. They may receive more merits than that person learning all day. We can't really judge, right? We can't really judge. But we have to know what our place is. Now, let's say we know somebody doesn't keep Torah mitzvahs. Someone's far from Torah mitzvahs. Not a question of being better, right? That would be like saying we're Jewish people, the chosen nation. So people say that's hubris, that's being conceited. Who says you're better than anyone else? Not a question of being better. The Ramchal and Derech Hashem. The Ramchal says the non-Jews are at a disadvantage. They are at a total disadvantage because their soul's not elevated like a Jew. Now, person may say that is, that's racist. That's totally racist. What distinguishes a Jew from a non-Jew? What distinguishes a Jew from a non-Jew is the fact that God took us out of Egypt and gave us the Torah. He elevated us, right? How did he elevate our souls? Torah, mitzvahs, right? Non-Jews have their own mitzvahs, okay. They have many fewer mitzvahs. So a Jew can gain much more than a non-Jew. Doesn't mean a non-Jew has an obligation to convert, right? They're at a disadvantage. That's true. And I would agree, they're at a disadvantage. Now, could there be non-Jews that are Noahites, that are higher level than Jews? Yeah, could be. If the Jews aren't doing what they're supposed to do and they're doing negative things. Yeah, very well could be. But at the same time, they're at a disadvantage. So what makes a Jew different, right? I think I mentioned this in my video this week that I made on Thursday on the Parsha, right? And that is what distinguishes the Jew from the non-Jew is the fact that we have a more obligations. The more obligations we have, and we do the right thing, we attach ourselves to God at a high level. When we do the wrong thing, just the opposite. Totally the opposite. Right? So we have this ability to grow. We have this ability, to work hard. Again, making us better, that's not the case. We have an obligation. Being chosen comes with obligation, with responsibility. Being chosen, that's how people look at it. Semites look at it, and self-hating Jews look at it as well. And they'll say we should rip that out because we're not better. We're no different. Not true. In two cases, not true. First of all, it's not about being better. It's what's my obligation. Now, if a Jew doesn't keep Torah mitzvahs, they barely keep anything. Are they any different than a non-Jew? No. Why are they any different? Torah is supposed to change us, supposed to modify us, supposed to make us think, make us want to change. That's what Torah is supposed to do. That's our obligation. That's responsibility. It's nothing to do with being better. There are Jews out there that say, yeah, hang out with Jews and this and that, and we're not going to intermarry with non-Jews. Why? Because they have a chip on their shoulder thinking Jews are better. That's racist. Right? That, according to them, is racist. Right? I tell someone's telling me many years ago, secular Jew, tell me, it's important not to intermarry. So I said, why? I asked them, why? So what do you mean? You don't believe there's a reason not to intermarry? I said, I know why there's a reason not to intermarry. I said, but if you don't keep Torah mitzvahs, So then you're racist. You think Jews, but don't you believe, Jews should marry only Jews? I said, yeah. But if you say not based on the Torah, if you say Jews should only marry Jews, what does it sound like? You're racist. What it sounds like. Non-Jews are very good, but they should marry into my family. Yeah, we don't want them in our family. So you're telling them like second class citizens. Everybody's equal in front of God. Not true. The Torah doesn't say that. Men have different obligations than women. Men and women have different obligations than non-Jews, right? If they're Jews. So it's not a question of being better. When God says you're the chosen nation, God chose us, we chose him. No one else wanted, it's kind of funny. No other nation, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah 2b to 3a, talks about God going to the other nations. When God goes to the other nations, that's if they want the Torah, and they all say, what's in it? And they all reject it, right? They all reject it, right? They all reject it. But they all reject it. They all reject it. What happened? Now they say, oh, it's racist. And you say we're better? They have an opportunity to accept the Torah. They don't want the Torah. Okay. So God chose us and we chose it. Very good. Very good. So what's the problem? What's the problem over here? Problem is, right? The problem is, what does a person think? A person will think, well, you think you're better. Does Torah distinguish us and make us different than non-Jews? Yes, it does. Right? The Jewish anti-Semites, non-Jewish anti-Semites, they all say the same thing. We don't eat their food, right? We don't keep their holidays. We don't go to the gymnasiums. We're separate. That's why, secular Jews will say, that's why non-Jews hate us, because you're separate. Okay. And when non-Jews assimilated into marriage, what happened? They also got hated. And they couldn't imagine what happened in Germany. They married the women, went to their sporting things, universities fought. They warred. Why are you taking us? Why are you murdering us? Take these Orthodox Jews. They're different. They're this, they're that. That's exactly what anti-Semites. If they were like everyone else, try and be like everyone else, they'll hate you. Right? And someone told me a while ago that, there's a hockey game. Is that a hockey game? There's a visibly Orthodox Jew there at a hockey game. You have to ask him why he's at the hockey game. Okay, right? But the visibly Orthodox Jew at the game. Yeah. So during certain times during the game, the guys yelling, screaming, jumping up and down, blocking people's view. You're amongst non-Jews. Yeah, most of the stadium's non-Jews. Hopefully, yeah. Mostly non-Jews. So now you were in Judaism on your sleeve because you look like an Orthodox Jew. Kind of look like an idiot now. Doesn't matter yelling and screaming. That's fine. That's part of the game. Okay. Crowd gets into whatever. So who says you're right? You got a right to stand on your seat and, block someone's view. And not only that, you look visibly like an Orthodox Jew. It's like, fine. You want to wear Judaism on your sleeve? It's one thing. That's one thing. I don't have I don't have a problem with that. But if you're gonna do things that are not right, can't do it. It's forbidden to do. Yeah. So, so in such a case, the Torah makes us different. Doesn't make us better. It makes us different in the sense we have greater responsibility. And that elevates our souls. That's what it does. Keeping Torah mitzvahs brings us close to God. Not keeping Torah mitzvahs does the opposite. Very good. Yeah, it's not a question of better. Right? That's what people make them say, oh, you think you're better. I never said I was better. Right? Someone accused me of this. A while back. And I said, either you believe, again, what's my bottom line always? Either the Torah is true, it's not true. Torah's anti-pig, yeah. Torah seems to be anti-non-Jew. We don't want to marry non-Jews. It's not their problem. And any Jew married to a non-Jew, it's the Jew's problem, not the non-Jew's problem. Non-Jew can marry a Jew. It's not a problem. Question is, they put a stumbling block in front of them. Okay, it's a different issue, but they're allowed. They don't have any issue. So what distinguishes the Jew between the non-Jews? The mitzvahs we keep. That's what distinguishes, that's what makes us different. It'll make us better. Because we can be a heck of a lot worse. Heck of a lot worse. Right? Person keeping Torah mitzvahs can do certain things, be an absolute desecration of God's name. Yeah, that's a problem. It's a huge problem. Huge problem. Right? Secular Jews also a problem, but it's worse by religious Jews. Why? Because we do the wrong thing in public. So we should know better. We should be more careful. True. Doesn't matter if it's only externals. We want to be squeaky clean. I mentioned this many times. We want to be squeaky clean. We don't want to give anybody ammunition to say anything. Nothing. We want them to be able to say, wow, what a mensch, what a person. Thank God his Rebbe taught him Torah. Thank God his father taught him Torah. Taught him manners, this and that. Very good. But they'll look for any nook and cranny in order to demolish. Easily. You do one thing, you didn't greet them with a smile. What's the matter? Got an obligation to be sad today? They're a fast day today? What? Can't say, excuse me? Can't. You got to be very careful. There's huge responsibility here. I wish, more people would take more of it. And sometimes I see things and they don't care. People don't care. Why? I don't have an answer. These are questions I don't answer. How can someone be rude? How can someone drive like a maniac, cut someone off? Just because they're in a rush? I don't have answers. Wrong. It's period. Period. It's wrong. Driving down a narrow street and then someone double parks to get something. Now you can't get by. Now you're blocking up traffic. Why is that permissible? Why in the world is that permissible? It's not. And what about public hygiene? What about that? I was at a kiddush today. A friend of mine, son had a bar mitzvah, so whatever, we made a kiddush in shul. So there were a whole bunch of tables there. It happened to be the table I was at didn't have plates. I don't know, other tables had plates. Someone went up, trying to get some plates. So okay, they had some cookies on the table, some other things, you could take by hand, not a big deal. They had a whole plate, like piled high of kugel, of Yerushalmi, of what they call Yerushalmi kugel. Now it's kind of hard to take by your hands. You can, it's very hot, whatever. It's kind of greasy, but it's not something necessarily you should, you won't necessarily take with your hands. So, again, you go to these things and you see, what people do. And sometimes, people have good manners, and other times, whatever. Someone said, well, what should we do? There are any plates there. All of a sudden, someone came by, just grabbed a piece of kugel. I said, that's what you do. That's what you're gonna have to do. Once you find a plate, you just grab a piece of kugel. I mean, I didn't advocate it. They didn't do it. Whatever. We got plates. Found some plates. Now, how someone doesn't come with a fork? Someone doesn't take with a fork? Who knows where their hands have been? I don't, whatever. Yeah. And someone just grabs a piece or two. Get a fork. What, like you've never seen food before? He's going to grab like an animal? Yeah, change the way you think in a certain way. Yeah. That's what happened. I mean, we got, a few minutes later, we got plates. Very good. Right? There are people that do have manners. Some other people, I can't answer. Right? It's either they were never taught it. And if they were never taught it, it's their loss. Right? But, should be grabbing the food. That type of food anyway. There's that one's got a plate, got cookies on it, this and that. You can grab it, you can't take it necessarily with a fork. Okay. But, there's a limit. I'll be generous over here. There's a limit. Certain things, come on. Sometimes, you see certain things, you're like, what? People haven't eaten in like months? They've been like starving? Again, I'm staying a little bit late. For this kid, it's very good. So what? I haven't seen food in 3 weeks, 2 days. I see someone grab I've seen it a number of times. Again, I'm not saying everybody's like this. I'm not gonna make any generalities, right? But there are certain things shouldn't be done. Okay, it's among religious Jews, very good, right? If you have secular Jews, you gotta be 10 times more careful. 10 times more careful. You gotta say, look at these Jews. They eat like animals. they push, there's a respect to adults, kids running and grabbing this. Yeah, it's a problem. I agree. Right? So I made an announcement, no kid should be sitting there unless an adult has a chair, right? Care how many kids are there, they wait. Adults come first. Isn't that obvious? Should be. Right? But, a number of times it's always said because there's not enough places. But if you don't have enough places, adults get first, kids can sit and go here, there, whatever. Right? But the problem is, sometimes people don't have what we call derech eretz. They either they were never taught it or they don't care. They just think, everyone's religious, so what? So I'll grab at it. What's the big deal? Yeah, it is a big deal. I don't want you grubby hands going into my kugel. Get your hand on my kugel. Yeah, use a fork. Yeah, that's what I would say. Somebody asked, how can you ask a person for your things back after they borrowed it? Right, what's the problem? Right, the question is, how can you ask the person back after you borrow it? Why not? Let's say they borrow it. So you get to an issue like this. Let's say they don't return it. Right? If I'm wrong, just tell me. If they don't, let's say they don't return it. If they don't return it, so you're allowed to ask for it back. Now let's say a person had a loan. Yeah, they're not paying it back. Yeah, there are halachas where even though the person knows they loaned them the money, they shouldn't walk in the same place as them. Shouldn't try and see them in public. It might embarrass them because they couldn't pay it, or they haven't paid it, or haven't paid all of it, or whatever. Whatever the case is, right? You're allowed to ask for it back. I mean, you can remind them in a nice way, without embarrassing them, right? There are people that think, could take it too far and just like go ballistic. So listen, you borrowed this, I need it. Break an obligation to pay it back. I mean, it's true. Well, say they got stuck, whatever, and sometimes people understand, right? We spoke about this before about, borrowing money if you don't have money to pay back, right? Everybody holds that's forbidden, right? A person borrows money, have no idea where it's coming from. Shouldn't borrow money. What if you're stuck? You have no food. Someone's willing to help you, but you have no idea where the money's coming from. Can you rely on God and say, yeah, God's going to take care of it? So by certain things, right? A person has expenses for Shabbos and festivals, the Gemara says God's going to repay you for it. Doesn't mean you spend way beyond your means. That's taken care of. God will take care of that, right? One way or another, He'll take care of it. That you don't have to worry. But who says I'm allowed to borrow money if I don't have? I have no way to pay it back. Right? That we spoke about that. Right? So there are two things. First of all, the person has to pay it back. Right? It's true. Even if they're going to pay a little bit at a time, they still have to pay it back. At the same time, the person who lent the money understandably needs the money back. Right? Doesn't give them the right necessarily, to be belligerent, and embarrass them and other things. Right? There are laws, governing in this. A person got stuck, whatever the case is, okay. But some people make it carry away. So listen, you owe me the money, pay it. I don't care. Just pay it. Right? But people get nasty. Oh. Right. So I would say if a person borrowed something, you have a right to demand it. Demand it back. If they say they're going to borrow for 2 weeks, so you give them a certain amount of time after that. If they don't return it, you can ask them. But you ask them in a nice way. So listen, you borrowed my thing. I need it back. Can you return it? So you do it in a nice way. You don't have to be belligerent. Hey, give me it back. You borrowed my thing. Give me it back. Right? There are ways to do it. Some people better manners, some people less manners. Right? But yeah, person borrows something, whatever it is, and you have a set time to give it back. Make sure you give it back. Now, does everything work out the way we plan? No, most of the time, not that way. Doesn't work out that way, right? So ahead of time, you're going to have difficulty giving the thing back, whatever it is. So tell them in the middle. Listen, I might have difficulty. Give it to me for more time. This, that. But I might give it to you for more time. Right? So yeah, don't worry about it. Give it next a few weeks, maybe a month. Whatever it is. Just make sure I get it back. Okay. Right. Some people may just say no. I need it back. Right. I need it back. And I need it back at this time. So figure out how you're going to get it back. Right. That's what a person is obligated to do. Right. But again, there are ways to ask for things. Yeah. Even if a person, got delayed and it's their fault and all this, and okay, but there are ways. Sometimes people help out. Very good. They have a very good heart. And sometimes they get abused. And they listen, I didn't want it back, this amount of time. I want it out. Should have done this, should have done that, should have done the other. Yeah. Not everything works out the way we think. But you have to have a plan. A person borrows something, you have to have a plan when you're going to return it. Right? Person, I don't know, they buy something, they buy a house. They buy a house. So they're going to get a certain amount for a mortgage, right? Let's say. They have to figure out how they're going to get the other money. So let's say they have part of the money. Say, very good. Okay. When are you going to get the other money? Right? It has to be orderly. When are you going to pay it? How are you going to pay it? All these different things. Okay. So a person has to have their ducks in a row. Unless they make agreements otherwise. Whatever it may be. But, things have to be organized. And what if a person doesn't know? Yeah, so sometimes the person may take a risk. They may take a risk. I'm not saying it's permissible per se. They may take a risk, thinking this is going to happen or that's going to happen, or they go to plan, D, E, and F when A, B, and C don't work, whatever, right? But you got to be smart also. You have to have eyes in the back of your head. You got to, you got to plan, but not again, not necessarily a person's fault if they get stuck. Why? They have to take responsibility. No one's saying no. Right? But things can happen. They get stuck. Other things come up they didn't expect. Right? So you have to try and accommodate for all these things that may happen, that could happen. Just make sure whatever it is, you give it back. Right? Whatever it may be. Yeah, let me see. Someone asked, how can a non-Jew be close to Hashem without trying to mimic the Jew? I always say, it's a good question, because I always say that, non-Jews think, oh, no high laws. There are only 7 laws. Yeah. So 7 is an umbrella. Probably about, between 60 and 70 laws altogether. But I would tell you, and I gave class on this last year, for about a year or so. I'm actually putting these classes together, gonna put it up there and sell it eventually. Right? There are about, I don't know, 70 classes, a little more, but five or six of those classes about Jewish philosophy. How to look at God and the Jewish people and the Messiah and the end of days and different things. But all the other laws are all about intricate laws about idolatry and law courts and forbidden relationships and all that. So you can say, how busy could that keep me? Well, that's not the only thing to learn, right? Those are the laws you have to be aware of for sure, and how they apply and what they apply. But there are so many other things. We're talking ethics here. Yeah. These ethics apply to non-Jews as well as Jews, right? This is going on for 3 years. 3 years. I've been doing this. Where are we holding? Chapter 2, Mishna 15. How many chapters there in Pirke Avos? 6. A lot to talk about in ethics. Right? Duties of the heart, I've been giving for 1.5 years. Not even, I'm getting there. Right? Getting there. I'm still in the Shar Cheshbon and Nefesh, right? The gate of self-accounting. Right? I've given 106 classes on this gate. 106 classes on one gate. 106 hours, give or take, or more. Yeah. So all of these things also Jewish philosophy apply to non-Jews, right? So without wanting to put on tefillin, tzitzis, keeping Shabbos, other things, there are certain, there are ways to keep Shabbos and different things for non-Jews. I'm saying it's permissible, certain things they can do, right? Certain things they can pray, or keep on Shabbos and different things. Certainly not like a Jew. Certainly not like a Jew, right? But there's so much else to learn, right? The problem is non-Jews who are Noahites, they don't have holidays, they don't have ritual, right? Much less ritual. That's true. So they have to be careful, because if they do things, they overstep the boundaries. It's called chidushei das. Chidushei das means they're making up a new religion. They can't cross the boundaries, right? That is true. They're not allowed to cross the boundaries, right? The problem is non-Jews don't have structure. Noahide laws, keeping Noahide laws don't have structure per se, in the sense that guards them every day, what they're going to do when they wake up in the morning, when they go to sleep, and how much they have to learn, and what they have to pray, and this and that. They're not guided by that, like a Jew. That's true. So therefore, they want to attach themselves to do things that don't apply to them, because they want to have that order. Okay, so if you want to have more, become a Jew. If you don't want to become a Jew, then keep what you have to keep. But there's a million things. I didn't say a million. There are a lot of things for non-Jews to learn that that they can't learn, that have nothing to do with the Noahide law per se, right? I started from the book of Genesis, right? 9 years ago, 10 years ago, holding by Leviticus chapter 17. Right, I give that class on Sunday, 9:00 Eastern time. So think about it. 10 years, I'm holding by Leviticus chapter 17. And these classes are like 2 hours. 2 hours, sometimes more. Yeah, plenty what to learn verse by verse. Tanakh, plenty what to learn verse by verse. The problem is, again, no communities, right? Very few communities for non-Jews, for Noahides. Not only that, there's no ritual, very little ritual at all, if none, right? No holidays for them per se, even though they can tap in. Not saying they can't tap in at a certain level. But you're right, you don't want to straddle that. But what we're saying over here is that there's a ton of things for them to learn. They shouldn't have to. But the problem is they don't have a community. We don't have fixed ritual. We don't have any of these things. How do I attach myself without going overboard? Yeah, good question. You don't have to, right? I want to tap into Shabbos. I want to tap into Shabbos to become Jewish. I don't want to become Jewish. I can't become Jewish. Okay, so let Shabbos go. Do whatever you want. Do you want to commemorate Thursday? You want to, light candles, not for the sake of a mitzvah, but just, have a family dinner? You can do that. You certainly can do that. Once you start refraining from certain categories that are forbidden work that you're not allowed to do, that's too far. That you've gone too far, right? That's the problem, because you want to start to do more, either become Jewish or limited. It has to be limited. But there are a million other things to learn. There are a lot of things to learn. You don't have to worry about it. But too many people want to do things they can't do. Right? Again, once you start trying to do things and see, I want to do this, I want to do that. This sounds really good and this and that. You're mimicking being a Jew. That's what you're doing. That's essentially what you're doing. Right? So when we went to the Noahide laws, we mentioned what they're allowed to do. What they're allowed to do on Rosh Hashanah. What they're allowed to do on Yom Kippur. And different things without coming up with a new religion. True. Right? That is true, but you have to know how. You have to know what the obligation is, what I'm allowed to do. But what I'm pointing out is there are a lot of things a person could learn, that a non-Jew could learn, that I keep you busy for the next 250 years without overstepping the boundaries at all. Right? The problem is just people feel I want to do this, I want to do that, and they do overstep their boundaries. Right? Some may overstep their boundaries. It's true, but only because of not only lack of perspective, right? But it's because they don't have communities. Right, they don't have peers. They want to, they don't want to be Jews. Okay, so leave Jewish ritual alone. Leave what applies to Jews alone. What applies to you, fine. You're gonna say, well, If I do that, I end up praying 10 minutes a day. So what? Who says you have to pray more than that? Prayer can be fixed. It says you have to pray every day. No one says that. Right? So you do what you're able to do. Be consistent in what you do. But there are plenty of things they can learn on, that are not forbidden. Plenty of things. Right? Without overstepping those boundaries. Right? Yeah, anyone's interested. I'm setting up what do you call it? They call it spiritual life coaching, either one-on-one in a group, to deal with these type of issues, how to deal with difficulties in with family, with friends, with livelihood, with illness or whatever. But this is a big issue. This is not a small issue. Right? People may need an individual basis, on a broader basis. You can speak about this for a long time. For a very long time. Delve into the no-hide issues, the no-hide laws, how things apply, whatever, what they can do, what they can't do, but then take it further. Okay, I want to learn this, I want to learn that, I want to learn the other thing. Okay. Plenty what to learn without overstepping the boundaries. No question. Someone says, God needs us. It's all bit of vote Zarah, just like a Christian. So here, I'm not going to get in this whole discussion because I don't want to be tarred and feathered by some people. Some people would say God doesn't need us at all. And I would agree. God never needs us. Right? God never needs us. Does he need me to pray? No. If we say he needs us, that means he's lacking in something. That's a problem. That for sure is a problem. Right? That I would agree. I would ask the question, though. Comes Rosh Hashanah, right? Rosh Hashanah coming up, right? Another 35 days, 30 days, 30 days for the month of Elul. Rosh Hashanah, what's Rosh Hashanah about? You open up a Rosh Hashanah prayer book. What's Rosh Hashanah about? It's all about making God king. That's what it is. All throughout the prayer books about judgment and making God king. So now, I would ask a fundamental question. My fundamental question is, if I didn't have Rosh Hashanah, if I didn't have mankind to make God king, we're the only being that can make decisions, because God breathed in the spirit of life, the Torah says, Book of Genesis. So the Aramaic translation says the Ruach Mamalo, the ability to speak. It means to reason, to make decisions. Yeah, animals don't make decisions. Animals, whether they want to eat, they don't want to eat, they have programmed DNA. Plants, programmed. Trees, programmed. They're all programmed. Can't go outside how they're programmed. Okay. So we have the ability to do the right thing and do the wrong thing. Very good. Very good. Now, if our whole job is, God says we have to keep Rosh Hashanah, and our job is to make God king, let's ask a fundamental question. If I'm not around, if mankind is not around, is God king? He's king. He's got the plants, got the animals. He's king, right? Why does he need us to declare him king? Right? Why does he need us? He doesn't. That's really the answer. He doesn't need us to declare him king. He's king anyway. Comes Rosh Hashanah. Torah says you got to make him king. Torah says literally you got to blow the horn. You got to blow a shofar. Okay. But we understand again, it's all about kingship. Fine. If we don't declare God king, is he king? King? 100% he's king. He doesn't need us to declare him king. But I would ask the following question, even though I may get tarred and feathered for saying it, but we'll say it anyway. If mankind wasn't around, yeah, how is God king? You'll tell me he's king anyway. True? He's got the animals, he's got plants, he's got the universe. God is king anyway, 100%. Doesn't need me to pray to him, doesn't need me to make blessings, keep Shabbos. God is king, period. So he doesn't need us. But doesn't a king need subjects? I would think a king needs subjects. If a king is in charge of people that are robots, is he king? Yeah, he's king. He's definitely king. But what about a person? What about a person who's got free will, who can decide to do the right thing and do the wrong thing? Yeah. Doesn't he need someone who can go either way to make him king? You need subjects to make him king. So I would say, in theory, God needs us to make him king. So that's heretical. How can it be? God doesn't need anyone. True. I'm not denying it. I'm not denying God doesn't need that. He doesn't need us. 100% he doesn't need us. But can a king be a king without subject? You'll tell me, of course. He's got animals playing, right? He can be king without us making him king. True. True. But wasn't man created to help God in creation? Quote unquote. I mean, there are sources that say such a thing. There are, did God need man to do it? No, certainly not. Certainly not. There are opinions. This is not the only opinion here. There are some opinions that say, yeah, in a certain way, God does need us. Certain way. But I would agree. I would agree 100%. In general, God doesn't need us. Nothing to talk about. Many sources say that. Right? God doesn't need us. 100%. Right? That make him an Ovdei Avodah Zarah like a Christian? How would other rabbis, debate that? Because if there is on the other side, let's say, there are sources to say that we help God in creation. Doesn't mean he needs us. That we trying to fix the world, so to speak. Right? The world was broken because we broke it. Adam and Eve ate from the tree. But if Adam and Eve didn't eat from the tree, they go into paradise, that's the end of the world. Right? That would be the end of the world as we know it, but that's not what happened. So God made man a partner. Okay. That mean he needs them? Everyone agreed he doesn't need them. Even those on the other side would say he doesn't need them. That's true. That's very true. Right? But, doesn't mean there aren't sources say that we play a part here. Playing a part doesn't mean over here that what? That God needs us. God doesn't need men. Could have created the world without men. Right? Could have. He chose not to. He gave us part of him, the ability to attach themselves to God in the right way. He put that spark in us, Jews and non-Jews as well. Right? He gave us that ability. Okay, so he wants us to serve him. Wouldn't it have been better? There was a whole discussion between the house of Hill, the house of Shammai, 2.5 years. Whether it's good or not for man to be created. And in the end, they said, well, it's better man not be created, but since we are created, we have to look into our actions. So they agree after 2.5 year debates, it's better man wasn't created. Period. Does God need us? Doesn't need us. Definitely doesn't need us. Can we help him in creation? We can help him, but he doesn't need us. He doesn't need us. Doesn't make the person a heretic for saying so? I don't know. You have to see. Yeah, you have to see. If you say man is a portion in creation, and we're working with God in creation, then you say, well, God needs us to a certain extent. But it's not true. He doesn't. Right? Essentially, he doesn't. Right? So you tell me which way is it? Right? Depends how you look at it. Some people will swear. They'll swear that anyone who says other than that, they're a heretic. So what role does man play? Right? That's the question. What role does man play in the world? God need us? No. Everyone agrees he doesn't need us. He doesn't need us. But aren't we, sort of partners with God in that sense? But he doesn't need us. Okay. Right? Yeah, so it definitely sounds like, yeah, if you say he needs us, he's lacking something that goes against the Rambam, the 13 principles. Right? I agree, he wants us to need him. That's true. That's not the question, though. That's not what this fiery question is. The fiery question is, if you say God needs us, you're a heretic. That's the question. Yeah, people swear by it and say anyone doesn't think that they're heretic. Right? God gives us the ability to pray to him. Does he need our prayers? Doesn't need our prayers. Doesn't need our prayers. Imagine, a person lines up to see a rock star, some rock star, yeah. Yeah. Michael Jackson came to Israel many years ago. I know, such a big thing for Israel that he came. So he interviewed somebody who was waiting to see him. And they said, he said, do you think he's going to see you? He said, I don't care. I don't care if he sees me. I just want to know. I just want him to know I appreciate what he does. That's what the person said in an interview. I'm only here to show I appreciate what he does. Even if he doesn't look at me. Even if he doesn't say anything to me. Even if he doesn't acknowledge me. Isn't that the same thing? And if God doesn't acknowledge me, right? What's the point? Does he need me? Doesn't need me. He needs my prayers? What does he need my prayers? The prayers are for you, not for him. See, for you to draw close, that's the point. That's true. That 100% is true. Right? But at the end of the day, he doesn't. Right? The person says, it's a highly polarizing subject. Yeah, because some people made it highly polarizing. This is a deep topic. It's not for a one-shot answer. Say yes, no, this, that, and that's the end of it. You give a 2-second answer. It's a complex thing. But I would agree. Most things I've ever seen in Jewish philosophy and any commentator will say God doesn't need us. It's true. That is true. So what's the idea of tikkun olam? Fixing up the world. Yeah, we're fixing up the world for what we've done. But, we go hand in hand. Doesn't God want us to help him in this world? To bring out, how is God going to get known in the world, to mankind if he didn't have the Jewish people? If he didn't have Abraham come on the scene, and start the Jewish people. How would mankind know? How would God's voice be known in the world? He wouldn't. He wouldn't. Right? So at the end of the day, if he didn't have man, it doesn't matter. The animals will serve him, plants will serve him, other things will serve him, fine. Right? So you're going to say, he didn't need man for that, right? I'll get slaughtered for that also. He doesn't need man for that. God's voice would have come out another way. Okay. I'm not going to argue it. But how does God's voice get out there? How do people know what Jews are and what Judaism is if not for Jews? Right? That's part of creation of the world. God only created the world for the sake of the Jewish people, that they're going to accept the Torah. But again, don't get caught up in the rhetoric. This is like, you're right. It's a highly polarizing thing. Because people made it highly polarizing. Aren't there many other issues in Torah mitzvahs? Yeah. People say, okay, talk about this, about that. And you have to believe in heaven and hell. That's true. That's definitely true. You have to know there's reward and punishment, right? That's like we read, the beginning of the parsha. Beginning of the parsha's read. Right? We just read it today. Put the blessing in front of you, the curse in front of you. There are ways to do things the right way and ways to do things the wrong way. Period. That's what it is. There are repercussions. You do it the wrong way, yeah, you're in trouble. I'm always going to focus on people do it the wrong way. You want to give, people out there give very strong mussar. Okay. I don't have a problem with that. People can handle it. There are right ways to do things, wrong ways to do things. Okay. I'm going to sit there and fight every lunatic that's out there. No. The problem is there are people out there saying things they shouldn't say that are heretical. So that people are going to come out against them and say you can't listen to them. You're right. There are certain things very polarizing. Okay. But if people are leading other people astray, right, that's horrific. Right? People have to be warned not to listen to such people. That I understand. But, you're going to, and this is where it comes up because it's, oh, God doesn't need us. He doesn't. 100%. Right? Is it black and white? There are many sources say this, right? The Rambam says, Others say God is absolute, meaning if he's lacking anything, he's not God. He doesn't have the right to reward and punish, he's not God. Aristotle has this idea of God doesn't do anything. Other powers are stronger than him. So no, that's a problem. That goes against the Torah. Very good. So people are going to say things that go against the Torah, okay. Right? Especially, they get a lot of followers, a lot of influence. Yeah, I agree. I agree it's problematic. No question. You don't believe in resurrection of the dead, you won't get up at resurrection. You don't believe in the coming of the Messiah, you're a heretic. Right? If you're a Jew. You got an obligation. Of course, this is what that means. I'm not going into it now, but that's the whole question. What does it mean? How far does it go? You can repent, you can get it back. You get your Judaism back, so to speak. But these are serious things. These are very serious things. Even though the Torah doesn't speak about heaven and hell in general, the other sources speak about it, a lot of it according to Kabbalah. Very good. So people have to know about it. People have to know it exists. People have to know there's going to be reward and punishment. You can't, this is the essence of what Torah is. You can't deny something that's intrinsically part of Torah. Just keep your spin on it. Say, why do you really think, it's a spiritual fire that spiritually burns a person? What do you know? How can the soul get burnt? I don't know. It's a good question. Tell you what the Talmud says by Titus. Right? It says that his soul gets burned every day. What does that mean? He got himself burned after he died, had his ashes scattered all over the world, the seven seas. So the God of Israel won't punish them. So the Gemara says, what does God do every day? God gathers his ashes together and burns them again. So the soul feels it every day. Right? Again, someone's going to say, you're talking about physical fire. How does a spiritual entity feel something physical? Can't. Right? Casper the Friendly Ghost. Right? Can he feel something? Can he feel fire? He's a ghost. He's a soul, let's say. So how can they feel that? I don't know. But there are sources talking about, the fires and what it does. So it's got to be something. We can't just say, wow, you really believe in that? I don't know. Kabbalah is Kabbalah. We hold it's true. We hold it's real. Yeah. What does it mean? It means the person's going to suffer. They're going to suffer in a severe way. So now you want to know the mechanics? Oh, that's a different issue. How does a spiritual being get burnt? That's a good question. That is a very good question. So I'm sure the Kabbalists discuss it. Yeah, but you don't poo-poo it. You don't say, oh, come on, you really think you're going to get burnt? You really think there's fire? Yeah, that's heresy. That's what they're warning about. They don't want someone to say that, especially if they got a lot of followers that call the rabbi, whatever. Yeah, they don't want someone saying such a thing. You really think you're going to get punished, saying this and that? That's heresy. That is it. Because it's only according to Kabbalah. You don't have any, open source in Tanakh that speak about it. It's true. So what? I mean, it's not true. I mean, Kabbalah is fiction. That doesn't mean that, right? What it really means on a deeper level, that's a different issue. That's a different issue. You can't make fun of it. You can't say, oh, you really think that's going to happen? And a soul really gets burnt. You really think that? That's a problem. Right? That would be a problem to say unless you have an explanation what it means. Right? But I agree. This is a deep thing. It's not. You're right. It's a polarizing thing, but it's a deep concept that most people don't have their heads wrapped around it. That they don't understand it. We understand it, some sort of punishment that the soul feels. I'll give an example. How can the soul be embarrassed for the sins it's done after it gets judged? How can the soul be embarrassed? Hard to understand, right? So I'll give you one possible explanation. Imagine you had your hand caught in the cookie jar, or any embarrassing thing you've ever done, right? Whatever it is, most people probably done something embarrassing. They got caught doing it. They got caught in the act. Okay, what does that make you feel like? That makes you probably feel like the worst person in the world because you got caught. No matter how you justify, you got caught. It's embarrassing. Total embarrassing. Now, think about that embarrassment for a second. Think about that embarrassment. Now, think about you understanding what the real truth is. And you understand what you did against God, and now you see this. Now you witness what you've done. Think about what that embarrassment is. So some say that's what Gehenna is. That's what part of Gehenna is that total embarrassment of what it doesn't mean there's no punishment. They're going to feel it also, right? But how does the soul feel that in general? Because they know now what the truth is. Because there are people who've had out-of-body experiences, they say. They hear people, see things, right? You know, they feel the embarrassment. That's what part of Gehenna is. So now, how does the fire affect them and the pain? That I can't answer. Or everyone would say, I've never met anyone been in that world and come back. Doesn't mean it's not reward and punishment, right? That it does not mean, right? Now, someone's going to say, oh, you really think it's going to happen and people are going to suffer like this and like that. That's a problem. I'm telling you, it's a problem to say such a thing. If you come up with your own spin on what it means, different issue. You can't, when it's spoken about, you can't just poo-poo it. You can't say, oh no, you really think it's gonna, you really think it's gonna happen? Yeah, that could be heresy. That could be heresy, no question. Someone asks, is it right not to borrow to someone you know that person probably won't be able to bring it back? Depends. Right? If a person says to themselves, oh, I probably know I'm never going to get it back, and you're okay with it, so then, yeah, you can lend it out. But if you're worried the person's not going to bring it back because they have a track record, let's say. If they have a track record, then you don't have to lend it to them. Why? Because, again, it can't be for any ulterior purpose, any ulterior motive. If you know they have a track record, who says I have to lend it to them? Right? Let's say a person comes to borrow money, and they have a bad track record. So you make a decision. I'm going to help them, and if I get the money back, good. If I don't get the money back, okay. Right? But if you're worried you're not going to get the money back or the object back, you don't have to lend it to them. But it has to be a legitimate reason. And, you can't just say, because I don't like them, I'm not going to lend it to them. But if you're worried you're not going to get it back because they have a track record, who says you have to lend it to them? You don't have to lend it to them. Right? But if you put in the back of your mind saying, even if I don't get it back, I don't care, okay. So then you could. Then you're doing an act of chesed, whether they get it back or not. Right? That's what I would say on that. Yeah. Any other questions? How to learn to get stuck in Meiser and Torah, away from the inside heart because of what? Tell you like this in short, that you have to remember one thing, and this is what I think people forget, and that is when a person makes money, however much money they make, it's not theirs. God's helping them to make money, right? If God's helping them to make money, is there an obligation to help others? Is there an obligation to give a 10th or maximum of 20th of what you make that you should set aside, as long as, if a person's in the red every month, they're $1,000 in the red or whatever, you don't have to give charity. You should write it down. Eventually you get money to be able to do it. Right? But a person has to realize money's not yours. Whatever money we get, whatever money we make, it's for us to use it, obviously, to live, but it's obviously, it's also to be able to help others. That's what the obligation is. Right? So therefore, a person has to realize that whatever they have is not theirs. Right? The first amount of money they make is like the first fruits. You have to give it. Right? You have to give it. You have to give it to others that need. Right? That's the obligation. And it's very hard. Because the person's going to feel, if I give money, I'm going to lose. I'm definitely going to lose out. You don't lose out by giving money, by helping others. If a person's in dire straits and they can't, okay, you can't. It's a mitzvah you can't do right now. But you have to, you have to write down, how much you need to give and whatever, when you can, it's all somewhat complicated, but in general, if someone's not making ends meet, and whatever, they don't have an obligation in such a case. They'd be exempt in such a case. And even a person that's barely scraping by, you still have an obligation. You don't lose out. Right, 100%. 100%. You don't lose out, even if you can't give a lot. I heard a great rabbi once say, or somebody they taught their kids, learn to put your hand in your pocket. Learn to give to others even if you don't have a lot. Why? Because you're obligated to help others, in general, right? You're obligated. You're obligated to help others. Now, again, if it's a mitzvah you can't do, right? There are mitzvahs sometimes we can't do. Okay. But at the same time, you have to have a willing heart to do it. As the Rambam would say, it's better to give many times lesser money than give one shot. Than give charity in one shot, right? In other words, better to give, much smaller amounts, but over a longer period of time than give in one shot. In order to teach you to give, right? When you give more, right? That's the obligation. But the problem is, people make money. I'm not even saying if they're struggling or not. That's hard enough. But when people make money, they'll say, "It's my money. I made it. Why should I help others?" It's one of the three things that makes a Jew a Jew. They're Rahmanim Ba'ashanim Gimel Chesed. They have compassion for others. They get embarrassed easily. They do chesed for others. Right? So charity starts at home. We should help our own first. And if we have, if we're able to help, people in our family struggling, that's who goes to first. People go help other things and other whatever, they don't help their own. Then it gets more complicated. What if someone's an idolater and this and they're a drug addict? Okay. There are different things that also it's complicated. Like other things. Who do I give to? Who's more worthy? What if I can't give a lot? Do I have an obligation to give? If I don't make ends meet? Right? These are good questions. These are good questions. But there is a hierarchy. Right? But the one thing a person needs to have is they have to have the heart. They have to have the heart to give. They want to help. That's what they need. Yeah, that's what I would say. Any other questions? All right, as usual, we didn't get that far. I'm going to stop here. I just want to remind everyone tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time, back to the book of Leviticus, chapter 17. As I mentioned before, starting some spiritual coaching, either one-on-one or in a group, helping people deal with whatever issues they want to deal with from a Torah perspective, i.e. difficulty with livelihood, family, friends, what do you call it, health issues, whatever, different things people want to grow in, working that out. Also, anyone interested, can text me or send me an email. So you can contact me. You can find me at Michael Chaim Kaufman on Facebook, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on Facebook, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I get videos on ethics for our fathers, Q&As, Book of Leviticus. What else do we have up there? Controversial issues and all kinds of other things as well. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever in the goods. Beginning of the day, middle of the day, or end of the day, depending